Alright, how about this? Fear of death. That sounds exciting. That's definitely something a lot of us human beings think about. That's one of the basic or primal fears that we have. I don't remember what the other ones were, like fear of falling, fear of public speaking, fear of whatever else, fear of death. That's definitely on the list for many, if not all of us. But it doesn't seem to be logical if you think about it. If you use the idea of fear of death and you filter that through the lens of logical mind and critical thinking, there is nothing to fear. It's ridiculous to fear death. The only reasons why we might fear it is because we've been told that a lot of bad things will happen to us after we die, especially if we had intercourse before marriage and a lot of sins that we've committed and all that. So there's, according to some books, there's a place that is waiting for us after we die, where there is eternal torment, punishment, suffering, anguish. Maybe, maybe not, that's not the topic, but that's one of the reasons why many people seem to be scared of dying, because they're scared that they will end up in a terrible place forever, locked up forever in eternal suffering. That doesn't make sense. That doesn't make sense at all. Yes, there is something about the energy that we put out is the energy that we get back. So if you have a life where you inflict a lot of violence and negative actions towards other people, when you die, you will probably, well, during your lifetime maybe, but especially when you die, you will most likely have that experience reflected back to you because you've created it. It's you're swimming in your own energy, so to speak. But you can always get out of that. It's not like you're stuck in it, and it's not like a place of punishment, but that's just an idea. So the idea that we should fear death because we will be eternally punished for the most absurd reasons, that doesn't stand on its own, unless it's based on blind faith, which is fine. But from a rational mind, it cannot be true, and it cannot stand on its own 2 feet, and there is no reason to fear that. I mean, I'm afraid I'm going to die because I'll be eternally punished. That's one reason not to be afraid. Another one is, based on what I've noticed, is that many of us are scared with the idea that physical death means complete annihilation. You will cease to exist. Well, that also cannot be, because energy cannot be destroyed, only transformed. So if there is an energy of your soul that is animating this body, or your consciousness which is animating this body within the consciousness, then that cannot go away. It's not just going to, energy that exists doesn't just vanish. It may transform, sure. You will transform. This is just a temporary vehicle. It's just for a short while, for a quick ride here. Our lifespan is a quick ride, is a blink of an eye. So to be fearful of death because you will be annihilated and you'll vanish cannot be, because your energy cannot be destroyed. But even if that was the case, well, then why would you be afraid? I mean, if you vanish and cease to exist, how can you suffer? So there's no need. So if it's true, there's no need to be afraid. If it's not true, there's no need to be afraid. So that's another reason not to be afraid. The fact that you will be eternally punished, or you will cease to exist and you'll experience complete annihilation. Another reason is, well, another concept of an idea is the fact that once we die, we may end up being stuck in a place where nothing happens, and we will be eternally stuck like an infinite void, and we're just stuck there in darkness. That also doesn't make sense. Why would that happen? How would that happen? Where is this place? How can we not go out of it? That may happen in physical world when people are being kidnapped and locked up, and or they're being put in jail and in other dark places based on this physical reality. So that kind of nightmare does exist here on Earth. But to be afraid of dying because you might be stuck without a body in a dark place that never ends and nothing happens and you cannot go out of, it's just, how is that even possible? Do you remember any suffering before you came on this world? So before you were born in this physical reality, do you remember suffering? Do you remember eternal punishment? Do you remember an empty void where nothing happened? I don't. Even if that was the case, then we still have the option to be born. So it just doesn't, these three options don't make any sense. Another one would be the suffering. Well, dying doesn't really imply that much suffering. Having a bad health, poor health, that implies a lot of suffering. Having a lot of emotional distress, that implies a lot of suffering. I believe, based on what I've noticed, that heaven is also a place on earth, just like hell is a place on earth, by using them metaphorically, heaven and hell in this case. Because on our planet, there are some of the most magical and beautiful things that are taking place. There are also some of the most awful, horrible things that some humans do to each other here on earth. So if you're afraid of dying because you're going to suffer, I mean, you live in a place where pretty much anything goes, if you think about it. Anybody can harm anybody, with some exceptions and limitations, but this physical reality allows for a lot of suffering if we choose to live that way. So I find suffering in this physical reality to be more scary than the idea of dying and whatever happens after that. Based on the experience of other people who are approaching death, there's books written about it. It doesn't seem to be a lot of suffering when you die. In fact, it's a release of energy and you're going back home, whatever that means. Suffering is until you go there. The fear that you experience, the loss of health, the loss of strength, you're confined to your bed, you need constant attention and people to take care of you. That is a lot of suffering. That is something to be afraid of, in my opinion. Not detaching yourself from this physical body. Why would that be a reason to suffer? Why would that be a reason to be afraid? Well, there's also the idea that we're afraid of what we don't know. I don't believe that. There's a lot of things that I don't know and I'm not afraid of them. I want to explore them. Death is something that some of us think we know, some of us know, some of us don't know. I'm not sure who knows what, because we all have ideas and there's books written about it and all of that. But I don't have a conscious memory of what happens after you die. I have many spiritual experiences which people who had similar experiences know that it's laughable to think that life stops after this physical body and there's eternal punishment after that. It's silly. Once you experience certain spiritual experiences. But then again, we could all be wrong. Maybe there's something else. Maybe there is something. Indeed, maybe there is a real reason that we should be afraid of, because something terrible will happen, whatever that is. Well, in that case, it still doesn't make sense to fear death, because what's the point of fearing it? You will live in fear instead of living a good life here, and when the time comes, then you can worry about it. So far, I have yet to find a good reason to fear our own death. It doesn't make sense. I'm not saying we should wish for it. I'm not saying we should run towards it with our arms open. No, I'm saying, why worry about this topic? I've just explained to you a few logical things that can be used to detach yourself from this baseless fear.